We'll start with the land acknowledgement. If we could stand, those who are able. I'll do it in French today for fun. Nous reconnaissons que nous sommes accueillis sur les terres des Mississauga, des Anishinaabe, de la Confédération Haudenosaunee et du Wendat. Nous voulons également reconnaître la pérennité de la présence des Premières Nations, des Métis et des Inuits. Thank you. Please be seated. Toronto School Board French, I will just say. I don't have it. Okay. Let's get started. So I'm calling this meeting to order. That we've done that. Declarations of possible conflict of interest. Trustee Laskin, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a possible conflict of interest under item number 6, the school-based staffing allocation, item A, elementary teachers, as my daughter is a member of EPFO. Thank you.
Okay, we will make sure that we vote for that separately so that you can vote on the other items. Any other conflicts of interest from trustees? Okay, hearing none. Item number 3, committee reports. Item 3.1 is the Finance, Budget and Enrollment Committee Report number 5, Part A from March 29th, 2023. School-based staff allocation, 2023-24, non-classroom and support staff. I will turn this over to staff who I believe will speak briefly on this since we did go into it in great detail last night.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. Good afternoon, trustees. First of all, I would like to thank Associate Director Zucker, as well as the Finance, Employee Services, Associate Directors, and other academic staff who contributed to this report. I want to begin by recognizing that the proposed reductions, any proposed reductions, are difficult. When we're talking about supports for students, whether they are inside or outside of the classroom, we want the very best for their academic achievement, safety, well-being, and equity. While the pandemic may be over, according to some officials, the impacts on our children are not. They are still present and urgent. Regrettably, given the financial challenges faced by the board, created by millions in pandemic spending not covered by the Ministry of Education, by gaps in the Ministry of Education's funding formula, and the elimination of COVID-19 learning recovery funding, it's not possible to maintain all positions at current levels and achieve a balanced budget, as is our shared obligation and my legal obligation as the Director of Education. Having said that, it is worth noting that while there are indeed some reductions being proposed, staff have done their best to maintain some key positions at or near current levels, including middle year student success counselors and guidance, secondary profile teachers, food assistants, and despite the elimination of learning recovery funding, we felt it was also important, especially in alignment with our collaborative approach to student safety and well-being, to maintain the 40 additional school-based safety monitors. With regard to library teachers, we've heard a lot about the importance of library over the last number of days. And as director, I agree. Staff are proposing a modest reduction of library teachers at all elementary schools, but in a more equitable way that takes into consideration projected enrollment, as well as other factors, including the Learning Opportunities Index. We've also maintained commitments to outdoor education and the experiences that we know our students benefit from. On the topic of principals, vice principals, support staff, and teaching staff, please know that we remain hopeful that the upcoming grants for student needs will allow us to reassess and reevaluate the supports for our schools and our students. Trustees will also see that staff have revised numbers with regards to special education staff. The reduction is now directly related to the elimination of learning recovery funding and additional reductions proposed earlier this month have been added back. I want to reiterate that we recognize that these decisions are challenging, as we know they will have an impact on students. However, staff have done everything in their power to minimize these impacts, knowing how important these supports are, how important our staff are to student success. Our hope is that the GSN and other government funding not yet announced will allow boards to meet current student needs. Thank you, and I will ask Associate Director Zucker to now preview the report.
Thank you, Director Russell Rounds, and through the chair. Good afternoon, trustees. And I'm going to highlight some of the key points of the report for us after the detailed presentation at FBEC last evening. So just a reminder that the school-based staffing represents approximately 65% of our total budget, in that we do it at this time because we have collective agreement timelines that we have to meet, but those collective agreement timelines really allow us to ensure that school staffing and those positions are staffed before the start of the next school year, and to give people time to be able to staff accordingly. So we did staff came on March 8th to present a significant portion of the school-based staffing to allow principals to do some of their school organizations and timetables. So most importantly, the classroom teachers to allow that work to happen currently. What you will see today are all of the positions that were outlined at that time as to be determined. We were hoping that we would receive additional information with regards to funding by today. Unfortunately, we have not, and so we are still using our best information at the time in order to make these representations. What that means is that our recommendations at this time do not or will not be final and are not final. And that once we have the GSN information, that we will be able to update our projected financial information. We would provide recommendations related to the remaining 35% of the budget, but we will also have an opportunity to reconsider the reductions to school-based staffing as a result of the motion passed on March 8th. And it would also apply to the positions that we are talking about today. So again, just a reminder of the three main reasons that there would be a change in FTE. One is the reduction in one-time funding. COVID learning recovery funding, as we've been discussing, is a significant portion of this, representing 522 positions or $31.5 million. Of those 522 positions, 485.5 of them are school-based staffing, so directly working with students. And therefore, we have been told that that funding will no longer continue and have not included those positions in this recommendation. In addition, there would be changes in enrollment, and if enrollment goes up, then we would usually add school-based staffing, and if enrollment goes down, then there is a reduction in school-based staffing. So from this time last year, there was an increase in the fall. The actual enrollment came in higher than projected. So you will see some increases related to enrollment, even though there is not a significant change in enrollment for the fall of 2023-24. And then the last reason there would be a change is any budget reductions based on our projected financial position and also per deficit recovery plan. And just a reminder to trustees that any reduction in FTE will follow the collective agreement requires, and it is anticipated that most, if not all, positions will be reduced through attrition, and that's retirements and resignations. So I'm going to outline a couple of the larger changes in the school-based staffing that you're being asked to approve today. The first is our library teachers, and there is a proposed reduction of 7.5. to, from 229 to 221.5. The 221.5 brings us in line with the ministry benchmark with regards to number of positions. But it is still $5 million more than we are funded for through the GSN for library teachers. So even though the number of staff is 221.5, because of the differences in how we're funded for the actual cost of the teachers versus the funding for the teachers, we are still spending $5 million or proposing to spend $5 million more on library teachers. With regards to outdoor education teachers in elementary, we are proposing a reduction of 3 from 19 to 16. Those 3 positions would be as a result of tighter scheduling, more efficient scheduling, so that there would not be a reduction to the number of students, rather just there would be less downtime per se, and that the board motion that was passed a number of years ago with the expectation that elementary students will receive 1 overnight trip and 2 day trips will continue and will not be impacted by this reduction. There are no significant changes to any secondary teachers that are being proposed. As the director indicated for special education support staff, we heard trustees on March 8th and have therefore added back the 14 positions that were originally proposed to be reduced. For our school-based safety monitors, we currently have 243.5. The learning recovery or COVID reduction would be 40, but recognizing the challenges that we are facing in our schools and the fact that we just did add 40 more to bring us to that 243, staff is proposing that we would in essence add back, so we would take them away from the COVID learning recovery and then add back, so to keep the same number that we have of 243.5. This was not originally anticipated in the projection of our financial position, so this would increase our projected deficit by $2.3 million, so that would take us from $61 million projected deficit to $63.3 million projected deficit. With regards to lunchroom supervisors, in combination with the reduction of 200 in the learning recovery funds, as well as some changes projected for enrollment, we are proposing a reduction of 192. And again, just for information, and on March 24th, we had 211 vacancies in lunchroom supervisors across the system. So meaning if we were to be at this point and this reduction was made today, we would still be in a hiring position. With regards to aquatic instructors, currently we have 93 in the system, and those 93 are allocated to usually specific pools. When the pools are closed, the allocation still remains. So we believe that we can reduce by the 13 that's proposed without impacting significantly the programming that is happening, and that we will be able to better schedule and allocate our aquatic instructors to open pools. Our total then school-based staffing for 23-24, given the increase in enrollment and then the decrease in the positions related to COVID funding, it results in a decrease of 1.5 FTE and an increase of about $9.6 million in total spend. And just again, our next steps, once we receive more information about the GSN funding, the staffing allocations can be reviewed, and then this would be applied to these positions approved on March 8th, as well as the positions approved today. And I just, before I stop, want to thank trustees for this special board meeting today, because once these positions are approved, we will be able to allocate them out to principals as soon as possible, and we're talking early next week, in order for us to be able to do the work to meet collective agreement timelines. So thank you, and I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you very much. I'm just not seeing any questions in the chat. Are there any questions in the room?
I had a question. Sorry, I have my hand raised. I should probably have put it in the chat.
Okay, I'm checking the chat. I mean, we can try to keep an eye on looking at hands, but it's a little hard. So please go ahead, Trustee Dawson.
Thank you. We had a great discussion last night about this, and I've been thinking long and hard about it. I've been thinking really and truly about our commitments to safety and also to, our government's purported commitment to safety. And also my very special interest in special education. And we have chosen to cut everything that was a part of the pandemic funding, including special education, and not safety. Why are we allowing this government a pass on that? Why are we deciding to go $2 million into the hole in order to let our government take the win that we have decided to increase or maintain the level of safety that they did with this fund that they are no longer providing? I don't support it. I support safety. I support the 40 safety monitors being in place. In fact, last night I even made the comment that I was happy that staff put it back in there. But on principle, our government is not supporting safety in our schools. We need to shout that loud and clear. Those 40 safety monitors and a reduction in 40 safety monitors, that's not our fault. We're not being funded. So we're being expected to go into a deficit when we've already depleted our reserves and are seeking $150 million, a lot of which could help to fund safety. So I will be voting against the safety monitors tonight. It is not because I don't see value in them. I absolutely want to see them in our schools, but I do not agree with cuts to special education and other extremely important supports that were a part of that funding. And instead continuing to cover up our government's lack of funding. So thank you.
Rachel?
That is all.
Okay, next up we have Trustee Rajagulasingham, followed, please go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Every year we go through this process and it never gets easy. I think if anything, it gets more frustrating and harder, especially having been through the pandemic and now seeing the impact of it. And I just kind of want to reflect on where we were the year the pandemic hit. I remember earlier that year, there was a guideline that was introduced saying that e-learning should be mandatory. And I remember at the time, the TDSB, we did a survey of our students, our staff, and our families. And they all made it clear that they are not in favor of e-learning. Then the pandemic hit and we went into multiple lockdowns. And when we were doing the budget cycle that year and talking about kind of school reopening plans, in our initial draft, one of the initial options that we first had was a classroom for 15 kids. And the only way that'd be possible was if we had additional funding, because we already had hit our maximum deficit allowed by the province at that point. A few weeks later, it wasn't possible. And we actually announced our plans that were based on the province's guidelines. There was an influx of students that were originally going to attend schools in person that then moved to online. And it was such a large number of kids moving. And the only reason was because they were not happy with the guidelines that we were being offered in person. So we saw a bunch of parents and families that didn't want mandatory e-learning, but were now choosing to attend school virtually because our schools were not safe. And I pulled up the number too. It went from 66,000 to then 72,000 kids applying for. And it was such a large number that we had to, one of the reasons we delayed school reopening was because we then had to accommodate such a large shift. So what I'm trying to say is that at that point in the pandemic, our concern was the pandemic. Right now, we're dealing with the impact of the pandemic. And families should not have to settle about what their students need when it comes to safety. So without that COVID recovery learning fund, you know, what was originally on the chopping block without that funding? VP reductions, special education support staff, school office clerical staff, school-based safety monitors, lunchroom supervisors, caretaking. Like these are the things initially that we had to go. We were thinking about how to accommodate all this, the lack of this funding. And now that we're talking about school-based safety monitors, and I think Trustee Dawson brought up a really important point that when it comes to these conversations, we shouldn't have to think about losing such a critical support, especially at a time when we're going through such a violent period in our schools. When I was speaking to both of my superintendents and we were having conversations around school-based safety monitors, you know, they shared how these are individuals that know their communities, know their schools. You know, there's individuals that the moment someone enters a school, they're able to identify, is this someone that is from the school or is this a stranger? And so this is just another caring and safe adult that a caring adult that our kids need. And it's just so frustrating that time and time again, we're kind of put into this space where we have to deal about, well, how do we accommodate this lack of funding and these reductions? And it's so unfair that our staff are kind of put into this, and I want to thank them for their time. But I think, how do we go forward with this when we're always adhering to ministry guidelines, but then we're always in this position of, well, how do we prioritize which support we need when we basically need all of them at this point? So this is really frustrating, and it's a really tough place to be in, and to pretty much really sick of being in this place time and time again. That's it for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Trustee Rajagulasingham. Next up, we have Trustee King.
Thank you, through the chair. You know, I really share a similar perspective that Trustee Dawson has shared, and the frustration that we've heard from Trustee Rajagulasingham. I absolutely support the prioritization of safety in our schools, and I understand the acute situations that so many of our secondary schools are experiencing, and the conditions that are developing in the elementary and middle schools too. But I have to say, I'm not entirely comfortable with, again, to Trustee Dawson's point, us taking the hit for government's irresponsibility. And, you know, the recommended increase in allocation, and that the 2.3 million cost, an increase to the deficit that comes with that, and the school-based safety monitor role, it's so conflicting for me because I see the need, but, you know, I also think about so many of the other roles that are being compromised, and the multifaceted, I think, nature of some of those roles, like community support workers, professional support workers, teacher librarians, you know, that we heard yesterday. And again, this is not to take away from the value of school-based safety monitors, because I do know, you know, what they bring to the community. But I also think about those other caring adults in our building, and the way that they deliver on different elements of our school and our system goals, right from K to 12, not just the secondary schools. So I think about, you know, how that ties into reading improvement, you know, to equity and anti-oppression professional learning for the staff. They have an integral role in that, and to the social supports that our families, you know, so direly need. Even lunchroom supervisors, you know, they have the versatility of, you know, being able to provide emergency classroom coverage when needed. And for me, you know, this is just part of what I'm thinking of, that, you know, some of that distinction is meaningful, you know, where I think about where we're going to make those allocations if we're going to be incurring, you know, increased debt in areas that the government really should be stepping up and investing in. I was in one of my smaller schools today. It's a K to 6 school where enrollment is about 240. They've got that 0.5 teacher librarian allocation now. And this is the kind of school that wouldn't stand out on an LOI. You know, they wouldn't catch any attention, but they would definitely feel the loss of that resource if they were one of the 140 schools that dropped below that 0.5 allocation. You know, we talked about the value of libraries as safe spaces as well, through learning. And I see the need for this. This is a K to 6 school where grade 4s and 5s are already expressing their gender identity, but meanwhile at the nearby high school, pride flags are getting burnt down. This is a school where racialized refugee students are coming into largely white Canadian communities, and I know how much the learning around belonging is going to matter. So again, I think about, how we balance the need and what the different roles bring. And again, I wish we weren't in this position, and I wish we were seeing more responsibility and accountability from the government in this regard. Thank you, the chair.
Thank you, Trustee King. Trustee Laskin, you're next.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, a question to staff. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not 100% sure. Are any of the recommendations that were made on March 8th or today at a level of funding provided by the government?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, they are above what the government is funding. We are
That's
not
what I
at
thought.
benchmark.
Right, that's what I thought. So as much as I understand where Trustee Dawson is coming from, it truly is a moot point. Every single one of these allocations, even though there have been reductions based upon enrollment, because we're only at that stage right now, is over and above what the government provides. So, I mean, the bigger story here is that the funding has never met the needs of Toronto students, and we've all known that since amalgamation back in 1998. 25 years of underfunding, frankly, in this board and across the province. So as much as I understand the point about we shouldn't be putting these back because they aren't funded, the reality is if we actually put back the staff at the level in each of these categories that were funded, we'd be in even more trouble. Why I'm particularly troubled by the notion of not putting back school-based safety monitors is, first of all, we had a special board meeting at this board. I'm just looking on it online on March 23rd. And in 2022, so that's a year ago. But it was to address school safety, and school-based safety monitors were a critical piece of that. And I think, as my other colleagues expressed, both Trustee King and Trustee Shishkin, no, it was Rajkulasingham, thank you. The issue of people in our schools make the difference. And I certainly know the rollout of school-based safety monitors makes a huge difference. They actually make connections with kids in addition to their responsibilities of, monitoring the hallways, monitoring the grounds, monitoring the safe spaces to ensure in school can be as safe as possible. So I absolutely am supporting the 40 school-based safety monitors above the allocation, just like I'm supporting, even though these aren't as much staff as I would like to see in schools right now, I am supporting these. All the allocations are above what the government provides. That is a point that absolutely we should be shouting from the rooftops, and we have. And the recovery funding, it's not just school-based safety monitors. We know it's all the other adults within our buildings that are needed to implement our pandemic recovery plan, which is on our board's books. So we will continue, absolutely continue advocacy. There's still a few more weeks till the GS ends. We know that our parents, communities, staff support the idea that it is the people in our schools that make the difference. And it's never enough. There is no question in my mind, but I'm supporting this so schools can at least get their staffing models prepared to the extent possible, desperately hoping they'll change them again in June when we know what the GSNs are and we can add back. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Up next, we have Vice Chair Shen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we have seen, this is not new, and it's happened year after year for more than 2 decades. And trustees have spoken against the cuts. Trustees have overall said, these cuts hurt our children. These cuts are having a devastating impact on the most vulnerable within our society. And we see that in our schools. And when we visit schools, we see that in the amount of resources that are available, the state of our buildings, the state of our washrooms for our children, the support that is necessary within the library, the adults that are present in terms of safety. We have been doing this for many years, for over 20 years, like close to a quarter century. And this cumulative impact is catching up. And despite the fact we feel strongly against the cuts, we have, as a board, continued to administer these cuts, continue to do the dirty work because the province has refused to support this. And so I'm not comfortable supporting cuts anymore, because it's not just about me coming into the trustee role first year. I want to take it slow. I want to see what happens for a few years and so on, because I know it's not just about me. It's about what I have seen the trustees who were before me. I was here. I was a trustee in York Region 16 years ago. And at a point, we as a school board, the largest school board, with very diverse needs in our schools, very pressing needs in our school, have to say, we will not be supporting these cuts. And there has to be a way for us to communicate that. The concern I have is that, we tend to think of, what would happen if we end up not being in the position to decide this. If there was some sort of a control by the provincial government, would they cut more? So cumulatively, we have cut so much as trustees ourselves over so many years that at this point, without the provincial government taking over, trustees in TDSP have contributed to this damage, me included, because I was a trustee in TDSP in the past. So it's important for us to stand up against the cuts, stand up and say, enough is enough. We need adequate funding for our system. This is a deliberate way to erode the confidence that the public have in public education. You talk to parents, they're concerned about the quality of education. They're concerned about the literacy program. They're concerned about the level of literacy, numeracy, math instruction, STEM instruction. They're concerned about how competitive their children are in a global setting and all that stuff. Very fair. But there's nothing to be blamed on our educators, nothing to be blamed on what is happening in our system on the front line in our classroom. So this continuous chronic underfunding and thereby leading to reduced confidence in public education is the agenda. To take it from the hands of public, take the public education from the people and turn it into private, corporate-based education system. And we will be contributing, if we continue along this path as trustees, we would be contributing to that erosion of public trust, erosion of public confidence in the education system that is public, and thereby contributing to the agenda that this government is up for. So I will be voting against each and every one of these cuts. I will be voting in favor of anything that is same or more, because I do feel that as a board, our staff have come forward and said safety is of utmost importance, and we want to make sure that we put in these safety monitors in there as a board to make sure that we don't lose our responsibility to safely protect our children. And I understand the rationale from the staff. I will be supporting all of these items that are kept at the same level or increased, but anywhere there's cuts, without rationale of enrollments or without rationale of a reason that is other than chronic underfunding, I will not be supporting those options. I will be voting against those cuts. Thank you.
Up next, we have Trustee Arts. Please go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So I hear what trustees are saying. I agree with Trustee Laskin. Each board and not just from this perspective of what is the funding. Each board makes its own local decisions. We fund a lot of things. We have different collective agreements than every other board in the province. For some school boards, honestly, the funding formula does work. They don't have the funding challenges that we have. You know, it doesn't work for us. We have some legacy pieces, and we do need to advocate towards that. But the answer is not always just throw more money at it or just throw more staffing. We do have a lot of things within our school board that we need to work on in terms of best practices, and we will. But that's not going to stop me from advocating for the funding we need or learning funding. We still have the fact that the province is cutting the COVID recovery funding. Staff have produced us some very clear graphics and tables that we can share with the public. I've already gotten hundreds of letters written from just a couple of my schools by letting them know that the province is cutting this funding. The voice is out there. We always allocate more. We're going to go back and forth. Us taking funding from one pot to honor commitments that we made this year, and we made commitments to our schools through the school safety plan to support school-based safety monitors, or just to support that staffing. We have to do that all the time because the benchmarks, no, they weren't made to suit Toronto. They do fit the whole province, and we have to make those decisions locally. I will say, with respect to school-based safety monitors, because some other positions were brought up almost as a comparison, school-based safety monitors in the schools, they're associated with the school. They are there all day with the kids and whoever else enters the school. They connect with each and every student. None of those other categories do. CSWs are lovely, but they are not in schools. They do not work with kids. They are not ensuring safety. Some of them frequently don't ever go to the schools. They work in a different capacity, or they're not working during the day. They're not equivalent roles. The school-based safety monitor in my kids' schools, having teenagers in high school, school-based safety monitors are one of the few staff that actually know my kids. The librarians are great. You know, they serve a capacity in the school. Do they know all the kids? Librarians at my kids' schools don't. That's a role that is connecting, you know, with the students in the hallways, seeing them, getting to know them. It's a unique, caring, and safe role that, especially right now, we need to support. If we don't allocate staffing, if we don't vote for this, I mean, just think about in terms of we're making a decision that is going to go back to our schools that we did not allocate any staff to them, that we did not give them school-based safety monitors. This is this already happened with spec ed when we didn't allocate our spec ed resources. You know, I heard from my schools where, you know, you haven't allocated us any spec ed. We do have a process. Staff have expectations. Our school-based staff and our planners have expectations for being able to staff their schools. They want to know what's coming. Even if the numbers change slightly from school to school, they want to know from us that we're able to make these decisions and that staff is coming. So I will be supporting the school-based safety monitors because I want them in my schools, and I know that they are a caring adult that has that direct connection to students, and we made that commitment to our schools this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Arts. Trustee Laskin, can I pass the
Certainly, please go ahead.
the chair? Thank you. I wonder, I know I do have a question for staff, and I know this was discussed last night, but I want confirmation on it. One of the concerns that we've heard a lot about is library and the changes to library. I wonder if staff could just go over the changes to library and what the lowest allocation would be in our system, and what the changes also would be on the flip side. Like, I know there are schools in our system that have very large elementary schools that have had traditionally the same allocation as much smaller schools, regardless of where they were on the LOI. So I know there's a bit of a rethinking of how we're doing library, and it's not to say that any reduction is it's not necessarily something we ideally want, but if you could just explain how those positions will work. Thanks.
Thank you, and through the chair. So the allocation method will be based on a number of factors, including enrollment, our ESL population, and where schools stand on the LOI. And so currently, every school, regardless of those factors, receives a 0.5. All of those schools that receive a 0.5, the minimum that they would receive as a result of this change would be a 0.391. Other schools will receive 0.51, and then there are 8 schools that would actually receive 1.0, because there are larger schools right now with populations of, 1,000 kids or more that still receive a 0.5, which would be the same as currently a student or a school that has 150 students. They would also receive a 0.5. So this would be a more equitable allocation, would provide more resources to the schools with larger populations, and a small decrease to the schools with smaller populations. Again, to 0.391 is the minimum.
Okay, thank you. I know it's a change that a lot of people have a lot of questions about, so I just wanted to make sure anyone who's listening from the public really understands what that change is. And although, this is challenging, I actually think some of the schools that will see more, that's a good thing in that sense. So there's a bit of an upside to that. One of the questions I also have is, what happens in schools if we don't actually do this base allocation? What are the implications?
Through you, Chair, I'll begin and then welcome staff to add further. This creates greater instability in our schools. They are waiting for the allocation of special education teachers, other teachers, in order to build staffing models for next year, to understand which staff are declared surplus or which vacancies exist. I know that many of our staff who may be newer and have options are awaiting confirmation of their status for next year, and may choose to make other decisions, to go to other school boards that are eager to offer them contracts and commitments in a variety of different roles. So that is certainly a concern that I know school principals and members of our school staff and support staff have articulated, even based on this delayed timeline. So those are some of the implications, greater instability, greater insecurity about what is happening, and less planning in preparation for the upcoming school year. I would welcome Executive Superintendent Lorraine Linton or staff from Employee Services to add additional information to this response.
Thank you, Director Russell Rollins, and through the chair, I think the director has really outlined most of the key elements as it relates to staffing. Schools are eagerly waiting so that they can mobilize their staffing allocations for the year. And that's, I guess, what I would add to what Director Russell Rollins has already mentioned. Thank you.
Through the chair, I think that message is something we need to think really carefully about tonight as we deliberate, because we have had so much instability in our system in terms of challenges in staffing with absenteeism. But throughout COVID, there has been I feel like if there's been one theme of the past couple of years, it's been instability, and we know that stability is important to kids. It's important to a system like ours, and we want to do, at least I want to do everything I can to create stability. So I'm really not interested in holding that up, and I think we need to make sure that we ensure our schools get their staffing numbers as soon as possible, and for me, that's today. With respect to advocacy, I hear what people are saying about the challenges of the cuts. I think we've been doing a good job getting our message out. You will notice there is a motion on tonight's agenda as Business Arising from last night that is really key to that advocacy work that I hope every trustee will play a part in over the next little while, and we will talk about that after this tonight. But the message is getting out, and we need to take it to the next step. I think that message about pandemic recovery is one that we can make in the public and make very effectively so that the government listens in a way that isn't creating instability in our system. I think there are other ways to do that, is what I'm saying. And so I don't think it's one or the other. I think we can do, staffing allocation today and also still really push for COVID recovery funding and push for the supports we know our students need. And I know we're not alone in that, because there are other boards who are sharing the same message. So I just want to make sure that's out there as well. And finally, I'm just trying to think I know I had one other point that I have to remember. School-based safety monitors, because that was what we were talking about earlier. I can't, in good conscience, I understand the idea that these were something that we're funding that adds to our deficit. I cannot, in good conscience, vote against adding school-based safety monitors. I think we need to be doing everything we can to keep kids safe and keep staff safe. And this is one of those things. And we just voted about the 13-point plan, and school-based safety monitors were part of that. I think they're an important part of the puzzle, an important piece of the puzzle that we need to be ensuring. And I don't ever want to look back on this and think that we didn't do everything we could do that was in our power to keep kids safe. So I absolutely will be voting in favor of that item tonight. Thank you. And I'm happy to take the chair back.
It's yours.
Thank you, Trustee Laskin, for your help. At this point, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think we can open the vote on this. And we're going to be voting ad seriatim on this, I think.
Recorded vote, please.
Sure. Just give us a moment on that. Pardon? Oh, I need a mover and a seconder while we're waiting. I see Trustee McLean's hand. Do I have a seconder?
Trustee Williams. Before March.
Was that Trustee Williams?
Yeah. Trustee Williams, seconding.
I'm sorry, I had trouble hearing that.
Trustee Williams.
Take that all out or just leave it? Trustee Williams, seconding. Okay.
Trustee Williams will second putting it on the screen.
Okay, just a reminder to, if you're not speaking, to please be on mute. So that was Trustee Williams. We have you seconding. And Trustee McLean moved it. Hello, Trustee Lee. You're just in time to vote in person.
Perfect.
Good timing.
Sorry, point of order. I'm just seeing on here one item, like it's not splitting them up separately. So which specific one are we voting on? Or are we just voting to put it on the floor?
This is elementary. This is A.
Okay, it doesn't show up that way in the eScribe vote.
So if you look on Zoom, what's on your screen? It's A. I'm not on eScribe, so I'm not sure what you're seeing. Sorry, we're just
Okay,
looking.
thank you.
But
On
I'm happy
eScribe,
to
you
read
have to
this out
do the little
if it
drop
would
down.
make it easier for trustees. This is to allocate an additional 306.5 FTE positions of teacher elementary as set out in Appendix A. This is what you were voting on.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair,
Yes?
Trustee Arts. If somebody's computer has recently updated, the eScribe platform changed a little bit. There's a little tiny arrow under the numbered, like it says 1.6 school-based staff allocation. There's a tiny arrow under there and you have to click on that to see the entire motion. Or else it just shows up as a little line.
Okay, thanks. I'll try that next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Arts. The vote is open, trustees, and I'm in favor. Okay, Lee is in favor, McLean in favor.
Rashwani in favor.
Trustee Loka Rotman in favor.
Welcome, Trustee Loka Rotman. Yes, she was in favor.
Trustee Gills in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Pay, how do you vote?
In favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks. She was in favor. We're just working out a technical difficulty. He was in favor. Mm. And yes. It's a pen. Do you want me to record? Yeah, just 1 second. We're just going through it to make sure we've got this. Trustee, yeah, she's marked absent for some reason, but she's not. She's here. Yeah. And she voted in favor. Yeah. No, not yet. No.
When they join the meeting.
Yeah. Just a reminder to trustees, when you join the meeting, you need to let us know, because when it's a technicality with eScribe, but if we have you marked absent, it won't, and a vote is open, it won't allow us to change it. So we have to do a lot by hand. So just in future. So 14-3 was the final tally, I believe. Can I just get an? Because Okay, Part B, if we could get Part B up on the screen. If anyone has joined since the last vote of a minute ago, let us know before we open the vote. Okay, so this is to allocate an additional, that doesn't make sense. It can't be 29. It's like, sorry, we're just checking something. 29? It's only 29 teachers? Okay. Allocate an additional N29. Just 29, sorry, there's an N in there. FTE positions of teacher secondary as set out in Appendix B. Thank you, Trustee Lee. Chernis,
It's not coming up for me that I vote in favor. Trustee Dawson, favor.
Trustee Rashwani in favor.
Trustee Gose in favor. Trustee Loka-Rotman in favor.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Trustee Pay in favor.
Trustee Hastings and Trustee Hassan, how do you vote?
Trustee Hassan in favor.
Thank you. Yes, but we haven't heard from Hastings yet.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, he voted, okay.
Yes. That's a no.
Okay, and that has carried 17-2.
I was paid by.
Next up, we have item C, which is allocate 2,799 FTE positions of special education support staff as set out in Appendix C. I think the vote is now open. Trustee Chernislin in favor, please.
Trustee Loka-Rotman in favor.
We're missing Trustee King, Trustee Gose, Trustee Hassan, Trustee Hastings, Trustee Pay, Trustee Patel.
Trustee Gose not in favor.
Trustee Hassan, Trustee Hastings.
你好，对我忘了，而且 let me ask 你是他那些假日上班嘛？有些假日好像你休息了。
Excuse me, I'm not sure who's not on mute, but somebody's not on mute. Thank you. We're missing Trustee Hastings and Trustee Pay.
Trustee Pay in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Hastings? I think mark him as absent. He's not answering. And that has carried 11-8. Next up, we have positions of school-based safety monitors as set out in Appendix D. The vote is now open. Chernislin in favor.
Trustee Rajwani in favor.
Trustee Loka-Rotman in favor.
Trustee Payne in favor.
Trustee Ghost not in favor.
Fired, yeah.
Trustee McLean, where did Trustee?
你的那工作名称有没有？就是那个就是帮工，是不是？
Trustee Williams, I believe you are not on mute. Thank you. Are we missing anyone? Okay,
Madam
that is
Chair.
carried 12 to 7. Yes, Trustee Patel.
All right, it's okay.
Pardon me?
I think I got confused with this vote, so I just wanted to change the vote, but it's okay. If I can change the vote because I was confused between what I was voting on.
So how do you vote on this?
I want to change my vote.
To in favor?
Yeah.
I also want to change my vote. I got confused.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Ghosh and Trustee Patel.
Thank you.
So that changes it by our calculations to 14-5, I believe. Anyone else have a change of heart before we close the vote? Yes, I think sold at 14-5. Okay, next is item E, allocate 2,355 headcount positions of lunchroom supervisors as set out in Appendix E. And the vote is now open. I am in favor.
Trustee Payne in favor.
Trustee Loka-Rotman in favor.
Trustee King and Trustee Ghosh, we still are waiting for your votes.
Trustee Ghost not in favor.
Not in favor?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trustee King and Trustee Williams.
Trustee Williams, how do you vote on lunchroom supervisors? Okay.
Can you hear me? I submitted.
11,000, but that one does include, the potential.
Can you hear
public
me? I
holiday
submitted my vote.
And
I think
also
we got your vote on eScribe.
Okay, thank you.
the 4%.
If you could just go on mute, it would be appreciated. Thanks. Okay. That has carried 14-5. Next up, we have item F, which is allocate 80 FTE positions of aquatics instructor in the regular program as set out in Appendix F. The vote is now open. Cherneslin in favor.
Trustee Payne in favor.
Trustee Rajwani in favor.
Trustee Loka-Rotman in favor. Trustee Ghost in favor.
Yes.
And that has carried 14-5. We're almost there, folks. The last one of these is item G, allocate 35 FTE positions of food program assistant as set out in Appendix G. We're just going to get that vote open for everyone. It is now open. I am in favor. Thank you, Trustee Lee.
Trustee P in favor?
Thank you.
Trustee Loka-Rotman in favor. Trustee Gross in favor.
Trustee Rajwani in favor.
Thank you, everybody. We're still waiting on Trustee Rajakula Singham, Patel, Gose.
I voted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you in favor? Can you just remind us?
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you. Sorry about that. And that has carried 15-4. Okay. Next up, we have business arising. This is the pandemic recovery period survey. Last night, actually, I need to pass the chair to. Do I need? No, we need to move her in a second, or don't we?
Trustee Lee.
After, right? Okay. Can I pass the chair to you, Trustee Laskin?
You sure can.
Okay. Can I just speak on it? I feel like it's okay. Thank you. Sorry, I'm having. My head is, I'm not sure what's going on with my head. Last night I moved a motion of business arising, asking that that the director conduct a brief survey to parents to hear broadly, to parents and caregivers to hear broadly on the needs of their children and youth, focused on their academic success, mental health and well-being, and that continue to be required during the pandemic recovery period. As I think everybody knows in this room and in the Zoom room, we know the ministry has indicated that the pandemic recovery the pandemic funding is ending. And the provincial budget didn't seem to indicate that there was money for recovery. So given what we have, what we know about our students and what we hear from our parents and our staff about the challenges that students are facing, we think the advocacy would be really helped by having some direct sort of items that we can point to in our advocacy from parents, because that does resonate with the public and with the government. And this would also help not just us advocate, but also our communities and parents, and to help advocate with us. So this is really a very quick, brief survey. We're thinking 3 questions that be asked using survey tools that we have at our disposal. So this would not be like a big, you don't need an RFP with a big process. This is stuff that we already have at our disposal. So this wouldn't cost us in that sense of a big bill attached to it, and that there would be a very quick turnaround. So I'm hoping that everybody will support in this, and I look forward to, once this is passed, that our comms team can get going on it, and that then trustees can really help get the word out and advocate on this. So I'm happy to take any questions and on this item, if you have any.
Are there any questions? Seeing and hearing none, can you open the vote, please?
Oh, we need a mover and a seconder. I'm moving.
Hart?
I'll second. Dawson.
I think it was Trustee Lee. I don't know.
McLean in favor.
I don't know if we've opened the vote yet. Sorry, I'm not the chair. I shouldn't be. Chernis Lynn in favor.
Loka-Rotman in favor.
Dawson in favor.
Gross in favor.
Trustee Rajwani in favor.
Jennison in favor. Trustees Hastings, King, Trustee Lee, you voted in favor.
Trustee King in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Hastings. Trustee Pay, Trustee Wajrani, Trustee Sham,
Trustee Pay in favor.
Trustee McLean.
McLean in favor.
Thank you. Trustees Rajwani and Shan.
I already voted. Trustee Rajwani in favor.
Thank you.
Shan in favor.
Was that Trustee Hassan? You need Trustee Shan.
Said it twice. I'm in favor,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
We'll close the vote now. Madam Chair, that is carried.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on, we are going to, we're going to go into committee of the whole, into private session. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Trustee Laskin, Trustee Lee, all in favor? You can just show of hands or let us know verbally.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So we're going to move into private session. Just one second while I change agendas.